Welcome to the Notorious Scoundrels, a Star Wars Legion podcast bringing you the latest news, general perspective, and competitive discussion.
Hello and welcome back to the Notorious Scoundrels podcast. I'm Kyle. I'm here with Jay and Tim. What's up, gentlemen?
Hi.
Hello.
We are fresh off the Canto Bight Cup in the vicinity of Syracuse, New York.
Yep.
That was last weekend, so we're going to talk about that. Jay went to that.
That's me. I'm Jay.
Yep. Tim's got some stats.
Yep, I had to do something productive.
We're also going to talk about how we sort of unintentionally kicked off a How to Counter Stuff series with our How to Counter Droids after LVO. And after this tournament, we're going to do How to Counter Republic. And more specifically, Yoda and Wookiees.
Yep.
So, sorry, John. You'll get to say your thing next week. Oh yeah, next week we'll have an exclusive interview with the winner of Canto Bight.
So just basically, whatever position John gets at any tournament, he's going to be our exclusive interview from now on. Yeah.
Right. All right. You got any housekeeping first, Jay?
Yeah, the normal stuff. I'll do it real quick. Stormtide. If you join now this month, you still have a chance. We haven't shipped it out yet. You could get in on box 7, and that you could start fresh. You don't have to go all the way back to box 1. You could do that. Or if you want to go back to box 1, we're selling quarter 1 and quarter 2 now. You can buy those, catch up, and then play box 7. Really excited about this. Tons. For those of you watching on YouTube, this is the stack of cards plus like 5 more that you're going to be getting in this box, plus 6 minis, plus 2 posters, plus a booklet. Like, I'm throwing everything into this box to kickstart everybody. You're going to have operative skill trees. You're going to have commander skill trees. We've got some crazy missions that John and I came up with, from box 1 till now. We've kind of slowly been bringing people into this, getting them ready for these crazy missions. And now finally we're doing the crazy missions. And also, I'll give an exclusive here. What we're going to start doing with box 7 is we have a map of the world that we're on now, and you and your opponent have to roll a die to see what zone of the map you're on. And depending on what zone, you have to go to the website and see who controls that zone. So all those forms that everybody's been filling out are going to matter now. So you're going to see if your ship, the Hurricane or the Inferno, control that zone, you're going to get some special bonuses when you're fighting in that zone. So there's just a lot of insane stuff and really cool stuff we're doing. So I'm really excited about box 7. So get in on that. Also, we have our sidebars and order tokens and mats in stock. I'm going to be restocking sidebars. The red and blue ones sold out again. Thank you to everybody for that. And so we're going to restock those, and then come see us at Adepticon. We'll be at Adepticon. We're sponsoring all the Legion events. We're really excited. We're going to have Stormtide there to demo. We're going to have mats. We're going to have, to show you guys to order. We're going to have sidebars and order tokens. We're going to have everything. So come see us at Adepticon. Even if you don't buy anything, just come say hi and hang out. Like, I love seeing everybody and saying hi. It's one of my favorite things. So yeah, so that's it. Oh, and go to thefifthtrooper.com and read the blog. All the blog writers are doing amazing work. They've been doing great. So please check that out. We just did, you could see the top, what did he do? Top 6? Did Evan do? Top 5, sorry. Evan just did the top 5 from Canto. So you can go see that. And he wrote some haikus for me and Evan on there. So that's great. So you can go read that, because I thought he was going to do a top 8. And I was like, hey, Evan, the boss thinks you should do a top 9, because I got 9th place at Canto, and he decided to do a top 5 and then write a haiku about it. So that's fine. So go check that out, and all the other great writing that everybody's been doing. I honestly, no offense, Kyle, but I think this is the best the blog has ever been, with all the writers that we have on it. And I mean, Kyle still writes for us, but before it was just basically Kyle. And then me writing some random ass like blog about flying or something to Las Vegas.
Cooking.
Yeah, or cooking. Yeah.
That was actually a really good article.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. So I'm glad we've got like some real writers outside of Kyle now writing for us and putting out you guys have been doing a great job. Tim, you've been doing a great job. So, I'm really excited about that. So, yeah. So
I mean, a bunch of very different writing styles too.
Yeah, very much so. Wait until you see Evan's other article that he's got coming out this week.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's something.
And we announced, was it last week we announced that John is our new lead developer for Stormtide. Well, yep. Evan and Alice, our two of our blog staff, are actually writing for Stormtide now. So that's really exciting too. And they're just doing some great work. You guys are all doing great work. So yeah, so go read the blog, and tell those people how great they're doing.
And support the Patreon if you like all that good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's jump right in. How was Canto Bight Cup, Jay?
Yeah. So, I was telling you guys before we started, it was amazing. I haven't been to a full big tournament since the 2020 LVO, right before COVID hit. So it was amazing seeing everybody that I haven't seen in a long time. And it was just so much fun. And I'll be honest, I told these guys, we did a Fifth Trooper podcast interview with the Canto guys, and I told them on there that I had my doubts on how the tournament was going to go based on their early questions and posts. And they did a great job. They really did. They rose to the occasion. I think they really listened to everybody on the Discord, because Dave from the group there was asking questions about terrain and like showing the terrain, and everybody's like, whoa. No, don't do that, man. Here's how you got to do it. And they really took that stuff to heart. And I have to say, there was some pictures on Discord that showed some of the quote unquote bad tables, but I would say they had like almost 60% of the tables were really good and tournament ready. 30% weren't, but that happens when you have like 25 to 30 tables. And on top of it, they were very proactive about making updates and like fixing tables. Like if players said, oh, hey man, like this is crazy, there's no line of sight, they were really cool about trying to fix that and make it right. Which was amazing, and I think what happens sometimes, and they would agree, is that there's a couple guys that really knew Legion, and then they had a huge staff, which was great, that was helping out, and they set up the tables. So not everybody was really Legion, like in-depth Legion knowledgeable. So, it happens, right? When you're trying to run a big event, that stuff happens. But other than that, they did an amazing job. The prize support was wicked cool and amazing. They ran a great tournament, and they're good people, and I had a blast. So it was a ton of fun.
I was getting some FOMO following all the updates over the weekend.
Yeah. I mean, the tournament was great. And then I know, from our cast last week, I did not bring double heavy, even though when I saw some of the more sparse tables, I seriously considered swapping my list last minute. I didn't. For all of you listening, I'm a man of my word. And I took Leia, OP, Luke, and Sabine with vets in the MKs, and then 3 sniper teams. And I went 4-2. And, even the 2 that I lost, I felt very much in those games, and they definitely came down to the last couple activations. And I'm sorry, all my Empire brothers, but I'm a rebel now. Like
we gotta soundbite that.
Yeah.
Can we soundbite that and record it?
You can call me callous, because I am switching sides. I am in love, and his name is Luke. Oh my God, Luke and Sabine, I love them. And I loved the combination. I love how they played. I actually did a little bit of an update after the weekend to the list I'm playing, and I'm going to play it for a while. I really love it. And I went up against the Yoda Padme Saber Tank. I went up against Wookiees and Tauntauns. I went up against Evan played the lat with the Vader bomb. Like I went up against a bunch of stuff, and I felt very confident in every game. And so I've man, I'm in love with it. So I'm just gonna stick with it for a while and play it and see where it takes me.
I'm gonna start calling you Fulcrum. Jay Fulcrum Shalansky.
Yeah. Somebody in the Discord competitive said that like Luke and Sabine were basically like heavy. So did I really like change anything, you know? So yeah, but that aside, I'm gonna try this for a while. And I'll tell you guys why, like I learned so much from having to play white saves on most of my army, and then B, not relying on two, like, you know, almost height two ATSTs like standing over the battlefield, right, against my opponents. And so there's just a lot of lessons learned, a lot of like, it's a completely different play style than what I was used to. And I think for me personally, this is my path forward to becoming better at Legion and becoming a better Legion player, and for you guys, a better podcast host, right? Because I'll be better at the game, so I'll be able to give better advice. And so I really think that this is my way forward. I am converted to the rebellion for sure, for at least for a little while. I have a feeling it's going to be like Kyle, because somebody there's this guy Rich. He brought that Callus, or not Callus. The AAT Kalani AAT double spider, list that I had mentioned. He brought a variation of that, and it was like his first tournament. He barely knew the rules, and he was just like stomping people's heads in. And I was just like, well, maybe I'll play that list. Like, I think I was on to something, you know. And so I don't know. So I'm going to play Rebels for a while, but if the mood strikes me, I may swap over to that list and try that for a while too. I think it's just, I would encourage anyone, if you have the means or if you want to play on TTS, try swapping lists and just playing something different. I have never done it outside the Empire. It's been a long time since I've played Rebels. And I'm glad I did. I learned so much, and I'm going to be better for it, I think, overall. So
swapping factions is one of the best ways to both get better at the game, but also just have a lot of fun, as was discussed last week.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Don't turn into me, Jay, and start randomizing your faction every tournament.
I was joking with somebody at the tournament about that. I'm like, I think I'm just going to end up being Kyle, and every tournament I'm just going to come with something new because it's too much fun. I get why you do it, right? Like we're in this crazy Wild West where there is no meta. Like, really, I mean, maybe Wookiees, but maybe not. Maybe some of the CIS stuff is a little meta-y, but really, if you look at every tournament that we've been covering that Bushman's gone to, right? Like, everything's been different. Like, the top lists have all been very different. So I'm really excited about this time in Legion and seeing all this crazy stuff on the tables. Evan is determined to make Vader lat work, and so he's getting really good at it, and it's getting really scary. We had to play at the tournament. I actually played him Friday in a prep game before the tournament, and he won, and then we played at the tournament and I won. And so we've got our own little rivalry going. That was probably the most heated, saltiest game I had was against Evan, because even though we're like really close and friends, we're both hyper competitive. And so we're just playing like Mike and like some of the guys like we're coming over and talking. It was like, not now. Vader's about to exit this lat. Don't talk to me right now.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's funny. That same round, I was looking at the pairings and I saw you and Evan, and then I think that's also the same round that Luke and Chris played each other. Chris Cook. I was like, oh, this is a great round.
There was somebody. Two of the guys, from Long Island, from the Skull Squadron guys that came up together. They had to play, like, it was all the like friends family battles that round, it seems. So which was fun. That's just fun when that stuff happens, because it was nice that none of that happened round one. Like everybody got, and then it wasn't until round 3 of the first day that we all got paired up, which is I think a fitting end for the first day. So it was cool.
Yeah, I drew Bushman first round at Lone Star Open,
Uh,
and we were both like,
Yeah.
come on.
yeah. Well, it's like that. Like you always want. I think all of us, right? Like you don't want your sweaty game to be your first game. You always want it to be like your third, right? Or if it ever comes, but hopefully later in the day. But yeah, I'd say the other thing too, I've heard you guys who have been going to tournaments talking about the the three game days versus doing more. I am fully supporting 3 game days. It is so much easier. And like, I mean, I was home by 7, like, 7:30. And like, I didn't stay at the hotel because I just lived down the road. But like, it was like I was home and like I could see the wife and kids, went to bed, had a nice night, and then came back the next day. And I was home for dinner. Like, you know what I mean? It was really nice. And I think and they had a full hour break. Like no one was running over. No, there was no like, it was a full hour. So like we had lunch with everybody. I got to see everybody. We got to talk. Like it felt really good. And we got it all in and we got our 6-0, like, so I thought it was really smart to do that.
I thought it was really funny that we spent a significant amount of time with John last week talking about
Yeah.
the possibility that someone could be undefeated, someone could be 5-0, be the only undefeated player after 5 rounds, and then still have to play another round against the pair down. And then that happened to John.
The Chris, the TO, he's really funny. Like after when John was 5-0 going into round 6, he goes, "You gotta win this one, man. You can't make me look bad. Like this was the thing everybody said was gonna happen."
Yeah. I mean, to reiterate, I think it also a lesson for TOs is if you are going to ever get to a point where you have that possibility, try to get a cut. So especially if you have a 2-day tournament, do a cut of some kind just so you have a round number and then that's all going to work out easily and it's easier on you.
Well, and I think, it's tough, right? Because originally they thought they were going to have 64 and that would have made way more sense. But I mean, dude, it was crazy. So it got dropped down to 50. One guy had like a family emergency while he was on the way to the tournament, had to turn around and go home. Another guy, like his hotel got condemned the night before and he had to go to a different hotel. And then that hotel didn't like shovel and he slipped and fell on the ice and had to go to the emergency room. Like, it was like the most insane thing. Like, so then we dropped down to like 47 or 48 or 47, like first thing. It was crazy. But they did a great job, and I take back all my doubts, everyone. The guys at Kanto did an amazing job and ran a great tournament, and we're really open and like on their feet with all the changes and adapting to everything. So they did wonderful.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I'll be taking my check, guys. Just
Oh yeah, your sponsorship.
Yeah, that was a paid advertisement.
Yeah.
Next week, tune in when I tell you what I really think. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Podcast land. That was a joke.
Awesome. Well, I'm impressed that they were able to get so many people to come up to upstate New York in February.
Oh, I didn't even tell you this really quick. Sorry. We're literally getting ready for round 1. Okay. Everybody's phones start honking and going off because we had an insane, like, I don't know, snow squall emergency because the winds were getting up to like 60 or 70 miles per hour and the snow was coming in. And I mean, Tim, where you're from. Like,
I was going to say,
I honestly have never had that emergency alert come up, and we get snow all the time. And so like we all look at our phones before round 1 and I was like, yeah, welcome to New York in February. Like this is crazy. But yeah, I was really surprised we got that many people too. Like a lot of people from out of town, like Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Ohio. There's a bunch of people from Ohio, a bunch of people from Jersey. Like people drove in for this one. So it was really cool. I had a great time.
I once got pulled off the ice in the middle of a game. The refs blew the whistle because there was a tornado coming for us. We were playing hockey, playing whatever. Russ blew the whistle. Everyone's like, "What?" It's like, "Okay, everybody into the dressing rooms. We got to hunker down."
That's what I felt like. I was like, what is going on? And the one guy that I was playing next to, he goes, Jay, should we be worried? I go, probably. I've never seen this before. Like this. I go, I don't know what's going on.
I mean, 60-mile-an-hour winds. That you might just end up being there for 2 days Legion instead of going anywhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah, no going back to your hotel. Just everybody sleeps in the.
This is where you
hall.
live now. Yeah.
Yep. Just like Tim, who's currently snowed in.
I literally cannot make it to a main road. I mean, with our trucks we could, but in my my car, I cannot make it to the city right now.
Perfect.
Yeah. I do have a stats sheet pulled up.
The first thing I want to know is who won the sniper strike team.
Oh yes. I mean, out of all the stats I kept, there was only one that was sort of a little bit out of place, but it was because last week there was seemed to be a bet about how many strike lists with strike teams there would be.
Yeah, I very confidently said two. two players would have strike teams. John and Kyle both laughed at me and then gave their actual numbers.
Yes, and then I said 17.
Yeah.
And then John was smart to wait until last because he's like, well, this is like the Price is Right, basically. Now I have a benchmark. I think I can either go over 17 or under. And then he said 16.
Although if by Price is Right rules, he picked a very one number that is either correct or not correct. Anyway, so in the whole tournament, there were 25 strike teams. That's not lists. That's just total strike teams.
Yeah.
One of those was Sabs. The number we're actually looking for, there were 16 lists with strike teams. So Bushman won not only the tournament, but the prop bet.
Yeah. Yep. So Bushman will be doing our opening next week.
Yeah, there you go. Congratulations, John. You've won the opening for next week. Yeah, the exact number, 16 strike teams. That's impressive.
I think he literally came over and told me after before the second game, he's like, 16, baby, and then just ran off to his game.
I'm going to take partial credit for benchmarking him at 17 before he went under.
So I tracked 50 lists in total, and they all had records. So I don't know how that translated to players, because you mentioned there were 50 players who dropped down a bit. But I on my sheet anyway, I had 50 lists with records. So that's 32% of the lists had strike teams in them, which is a thing that exists.
Mm-hmm.
That seems that seems both healthy and also kind of low to me.
Yeah, I mean, the other interesting thing, so I split my data into all 50 lists, and then the list that went X and 1 or higher, so i.e. the top 5. And then I split it into the top 32, which was the 3 and 3 and better. So the people who went 50% or better. So of those, the top 5, no strike teams at all. And then the top 32, there were 7 lists with strike teams, which translates to 21 or 22%. Sorry. So not only was the sort of the total strike team seems to be low, but the of the lists that sort of won games or sort of did decent, that number was even lower. So sort of indicative of what we've been seeing probably of the overall thing. There's a lot of good special forces and Clone War factions. Their snipers are meh.
Yeah,
they're fine.
Faction breakdown: 24% GAR, 22% CIS, 36% Rebel, and 18% Imperial. So it kind of tracks with what the other stuff we've been seeing.
Well, LVO was much more heavy droids than Rebels,
but not I mean, this is fairly balanced, right?
Yeah.
Which is sort of what LVO was. It was CIS was higher, but not crazily higher. Top 5 was 1 GAR, 2 CIS, 1 Rebel, 1 Imperial, which is about as balanced as you can ask.
Yeah, for 5, that's literally
the
you gotta have balanced. 2 of somebody. So yeah.
And then the faction breakdown for the top 32 pretty much tracked with the list that came in, off by a few percent, but basically whatever came in sort of did that well. What else do you want to see? Do you want to take a stab at what the average bid was?
I'm already looking at the
Oh,
spreadsheet.
okay.
So
6.
Okay, Jay guesses 6. The average bid for the whole tournament was 3.75, 3.74. And that only increased as you go higher in the rankings. The top 5 had a bid. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong. I'm looking at my own organization is screwing me up. Top 5 for bids was 5.2, so bid higher, and then top 32 was 3.6, so about the same as what came in. And activation count, we had 9.4 to start, and basically at all stratospheres it was about 9.4. So, and that's kind of all that kind of tracks with LVO for the most part.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Because when I was playing, I don't know, I said 6, I just threw that out, but like most of the players I played had 800 points. I think only a couple beat me at bid, and then we basically rolled off on the other ones because I had 800 and there's a lot of ties there. So
yeah, I didn't do a median average, but just sort of subjectively, I was seeing sort of a fair number of lists that were bidding into like the 8 to 10 range, and then a lot of lists that were bidding like 0 or 1. I didn't see a lot in that mid range, so I probably should have done a median average as well to just maybe see what that looked like. But
it'd be nice to get like a bar chart.
Yeah,
with the counts.
I did this data as
I know.
easily.
Well,
I now have a system, so hopefully, if when I do this in the future, I'll probably be able to do a little bit better.
do you have how many lists brought Wookiees?
I don't have that because I didn't feel like counting individual units because I got tired. But I do have lists with melee. I put melee in quotations. And what that means, so that was very subjective, but basically it meant you had 2 melee units, give or take, not including force users, because force users were their own separate category. So basically melee units was basically all either Wookiees or Magna Guards for the most part. I think one of those lists had Tauntauns and Wookiees, so of course that's a melee list. But so list of melee total tournament is 20, so 40%.
Yep.
Top 5 was 3, so 60%, and then top 32 was 18, which is 56.25%. So the melee list did better than average, which is I think what we've come to understand.
Been observing, yeah.
Yep. Sorry, go.
Well, I was going to interrupt you because I want to talk about the bids real quick.
Okay.
Because this is an increase from LVO.
By average of 1, yeah.
LVO was like 2.5, wasn't it?
2, yeah. So the average on the whole tournament was 3.75, so about 1 point average increase.
Yeah, and then the biggest difference was in the upper lists because LVO had 4 of the top 6 lists were no bid, 800 points. And these ones, the top 5 lists had bigger bids. I did notice though too, I think we talked about like how it's kind of a mistake, I think, to just be going 800 points if you don't have a plan for 800 points. And you definitely, I think, saw more people making those risk mitigation choices with their unit selection and their list styles rather than with the bid. I mean, you look at John's list, right? We can talk about this next week with John. But he has, as we described last week, a W key list, right? It's very much like, I don't care what the objective cards are. I'm going to murder you with Yoda and an avalanche of Wookiees. And he said he was red player 6 out of 6 times in this tournament. So that definitely speaks to that style of like battle cards. I don't care.
Yeah.
You can't score if your units have no arms.
Yeah.
So,
I just took a quick look too. So there's only 4 lists that have double digit bids, 10, 12, and 13. So, and then a lot in the like 7 to 9 range, just sort of subjectively looking at it. So just, yeah, like a huge bid these days, like if you're hitting double digits is like pretty much a huge bid at this point in time.
Yeah, so here's my take on the bids. So just from this tournament, playing another list, when my lessons learned that I was talking about earlier, I went in with 800. It was just how I built the thing, and I was like, let's see how this goes. I was red 4 out of 6 times, and I have to say, I am retooling my list to have a bid because I would prefer to have the choice. So what's happening is I found, especially at this tournament, where there were some questionable tables that I for sure played on, even though they tried to change them as fast as they could, there were still questionable tables that were bad for me, right? And I got red in those scenarios because my opponents wanted their deck more than they wanted the table side. But if I hadn't, I would have been in real trouble. My first game that I lost was terrible for me from a table perspective, and it was an uphill battle the whole game because of that. And so with that lesson learned, I was like, I need a bid just so I can choose. So I can say, no, I'm going to be red, or no, yeah, I want blue. I don't care what side I take because I want my deck in this case, So yeah, I'm definitely building in a bid just to be able to have a choice.
Well, and for me too, like I used to incorporate like 20 points into my bid. So like in my list building right now, if I can drop an upgrade or two to give you a 2, 3, 4 point bid, I think that's very much worth it. Like in my LVO list, I could have had a recon intel or a 2 point bid, and I decided to take a 2 point bid. So I think a lot like we've seen very recently a lot of those decisions of, do I take this one last upgrade or the bid? A lot more people have been veering towards that one last upgrade, but I still think that little bit of bid is pretty important still.
Yeah.
Yep. Give yourself the flex to punt your deck and then still take a bid so you can choose.
Yep. What other stats do you want to hear about? I'm starting to run out.
Whoopies. But you don't have that.
Yeah.
How convenient.
Wow. Yeah,
what was the faction breakdown? Do you have that?
We did that already.
Oh,
Yep.
sorry. Did I miss that?
Did you do the top half faction breakdown?
I did, yeah. So it was
Okay.
basically the same as the.
He's been talking really fast. It's hard to.
Yeah.
I have a spreadsheet in front of me. It's exciting. I didn't actually say the numbers though. So the top 32, 8 GAR, 7 CIS, 11 Rebel, and 6 Imperial. But that basically just tracks with the numbers that came into the tournament, more or less.
Yeah, that's almost perfectly, actually.
They're all
on a percentage basis.
All within 1.62% of their original starting number.
Yep.
Which basically correlates to just like how the fractions have to break down.
Yep.
We did see versus LVO, we saw a decrease in force users overall. We saw 19 force users in total. 2 made the top 5, 11 made top 32. There's only one list with 2 force users in it, so 18 lists brought force users, which was only 36%, which compared to like the 60% ish at LVO is a bit of a drop off. And then heavies saw a much higher prevalence in this tournament versus LVO. 54% of lists had heavies started of day one, which correlates to 37 total heavies. So not all the heavy lists were double heavy. It's like 1.5 heavies per list that had them. 3 heavies made the top 5. 3 lists with heavies, sorry, which I think was a bus, an AAT, and something.
Yep.
And then 16 lists made the top 32 with heavies, so 50% exactly. So the heavy list basically did about as well as you'd expect. Like 54% started, 60% of the top 5 were heavies, and then 50% of the top 32 were heavies.
Now, I will say something that probably skewed that number was at this tournament, one of the top prizes was they called Rolling Thunder. So they had whoever had the most, I think it was heavies or most vehicles, got a prize for getting what the highest rank with the most vehicles.
Yeah, like subjectively, like there was sort of like that prize. There was also the Highlander prize.
Yep.
Those two.
You're welcome, world.
So those 2 prizes did skew the list a little bit. There was like definitely a handful of lists that were very obviously trying to fit into those formats, but I don't think it skewed the data drastically one way or the other. So that's all just subjective.
I have to say that was probably one of the more exciting things for me at the tournament was that Evan and I did that Highlander thing, and then I did the article, and now there's tournaments giving awards for best Highlander list, and people coming up to me showing me their Highlander list, going Highlander, just yelling Highlander throughout the tournament. So
I mean, it does make interesting lists. As I was going through them, I'm like, what is this? And then I go, oh, it's a Highlander list.
yeah.
Shift the brain a little bit. Okay, now let's look at it.
Yeah.
I only got one more stat, I think, of the stuff I kept track of. That was lists with a quote gun line. This is kind of similar to Melee, where it's not really, it's more subjective, but basically I was like 3 to 4 units at least that were sort of gunline units. I also incorporated like dwarf spiders into that gun line because it didn't really fit into any other thing. But anyway, so 33 lists that started had a gun line, which was 66%, which they're kind of everywhere because it wasn't very hard to meet that bar of a gun line. 3 lists in the top 5 had a gun line, and then 19 in the top 32, so just under 60%. So out of all this data, there's not too many things that were like drastically different than their starting percentages or anything. So I don't think there was any huge takeaways, you could say, from this data in terms of like one thing breaking through into the meta or anything. But anyway.
I think the biggest like sort of percentage differential that I see is just the one that you already talked about, which is just lists with Melee.
Yeah.
Where the representation was higher. You had 20 lists with quote Melee, which is, at least 2 of those Melee units that are not Force users. And then 18 of those lists were top 50%. So that's a pretty significant conversion rate. If you're using basically only 2 of the 20 quote unquote Melee lists didn't make the top half of the standings. But yeah, other than that, most of the standings track pretty closely, or most of the stats track pretty closely with their starting numbers.
Yeah. I mean, and like, I think that was something we've known, right? There's not anything here that's breaking with our idea of how the game is right now. So
yeah, we're in a go after your opponent meta right now.
Yep. And I mean, a lot of the heavies were land speeders, land speeders, air speeders, and buses.
Yeah.
But quite a few land speeders, like probably one of the highest percentage of land. I should have kept track of land speeders because it was, by the time I got through the list, I was like, that is a lot of land speeders.
Yep.
I also think like some of those land speeder lists were doing the Highlander thing where they were doing like a bus and a land speeder or an air speeder land speeder, because those 3 heavies kind of work together pretty well. So if someone wanted to do like a double heavy Highlander list, they often were trying to fit those 3 in there somehow.
Yeah. It's good a lot of Han too. Han was man, I played 3 Han lists against 3 Han lists. I just forgot about Han, like in his cards. God,
his cards are so good.
Yeah.
Why don't we use this opportunity to transition to our second topic real quickly, which is countering Republic.
Yeah.
Smooth.
Han's a good counter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about why.
Right.
Because not only does Republic tend to have a lot of red saves in it, even if you're running like a wiki skew, you still have at least 12 models with red saves in it that are not Pierce immune, right? Because you got to take 3 core units.
Yep.
And clearly Han is good against red saves.
Yep.
But change of plans really messes with Yoda.
Really?
I mean, it messes with all Force.
It messes with a lot of things.
Yeah. But yeah, Yoda in particular, because for those of you who don't know, the whole progression for Yoda is all on his command cards and when he plays them and how he plays them. And so when you have a card that says, you're not going to play that, you have to pick something else, it can really throw a damper in what that player is trying to do.
I do think, like, especially if you have Chewie's like Notorious Scoundrels, the 3-pip, I think the ideal use of Change of Plans is often like a turn 2. Once they sort of set the progression, what they want to do, you then break it up on that second turn so that they're forced to change their plans a little bit. But then also one of the important things to keep in mind is like often Yoda has burst of speed and wants to use burst of speed on his 2-pip, followed by playing his 1-pip so that he can keep his speed up, because then he just goes to speed 2 instead of being immobilized. So if you can sort of just keep change of plans in your hand for when Yoda would want to do that, he's kind of forced to never play burst of speed, which is a really good anti-Yoda tactic.
Yeah, so potentially if you do have Chewie, you get 2 uses of it. If you play it the first time before he has used burst, make sure you cycle it so that you can get it back for after he uses burst.
Yeah, and then as soon as you see if when Yoda ever has an immobilized token, and he has his 1 pip in his hand, that's when you want a change of plans, especially.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one counter to that counter is Chewie himself, Republic Chewie.
Yeah.
Because that's another way for Chewie to get around the immobilized token thing. So if your 1 pip gets change of plans, then you can play the Chewie Yoda card where Chewie just throws Yoda on his back, and then the immobilized token doesn't matter. So
that card, I've always said it's sort of the break glass option for Yoda.
Yep.
Right. If you're running Yoda Chewbacca, you probably never play that card until it's an emergency. And then you play it, and it's one of the best cards you can play because it can get Yoda out of a situation, can keep him from dying, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Chewie with searching red saves is like, you just don't even bother.
I mean, it's a saber tank.
Yeah, 9 wounds, surging red saves. And he's got Guardian for Yoda, so like,
and he can use deflect.
Right. You're just basically like dumping 9 health on top of Yoda's attack, wound total for a turn.
Yeah. Like Bushman brought Yoda and Chewie, and I think like that combination is not cool. Like, I mean, it's starting to see the light of day. You won a tournament, but it's a very good combination.
Yep. Tim, you got to turn your Discord notifications off, man.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, turn your volume down, man. We're gonna get yelled at again.
I didn't realize. I thought I fixed that problem.
No, all the commenters are gonna come through being like, "Oh, I thought it was my Discord."
Well, I thought I fixed that. Oh well.
You're the worst. You're fired.
All right. Let's talk about some other attributes of Republic that can potentially be countered.
Okay.
So they do tend to rely on dodge tokens.
Yep. Guess what? Guess what gets past that? High velocity.
High velocity.
Yep. I learned that this weekend. Guess who doesn't care about dodge tokens is snipers.
Yep. Snipers also have Pierce, which is good against those red saves.
Yep. Actually, there was somebody. I forgot who it was. I was playing somebody, and they were playing one of the Galactic, the Clone Wars era, and they were like, "Wait, what? What do they have?" I'm like, "Yeah, high velocity. It ignores dodges." And they're like, "And they have Pierce." I'm like, "Yeah, and they surge on hit." I go, "Yeah," and they're like, "Those guys are broken." And it's like, do you know they used to have infinite range? Now it's only range 5.
Yeah.
They were like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, man."
I mean, to be fair, their dice is a lot worse.
Yeah.
You're talking like BX snipers have double surging red dice. That is significantly better.
Yeah, I was rolling pretty hot at the time, though. So it seemed like that they were better. So.
But yeah, high velocity, a big deal against Republic. Yeah. Almost every like halfway decent Republic list I can think of involves stacking dodge tokens in some way. Yoda stacks dodges with his cards and with Ataru Mastery. Anakin Padme lists stack dodges with their exemplar token sharing. Even clone centered lists where you're just bringing like a bunch of clones with Rex or clone commanders do a lot of dodge token sharing because what's the primary weakness of a dodge token? That if it like a normal, like if a stormtrooper just takes a dodge, then your opponent shoots something else, right? It's not like an aim token where it's guaranteed to be useless. But Republic has so many ways to share those dodges between clone token sharing and exemplar and like Yoda's 3-pip that it basically gives any eligible target a dodge token and suddenly they're amazing. So if you can bypass those with high velocity, pretty good.
Or criticals do it too.
Depending on the unit. Depending on
Sometimes
the
depends
unit,
on
yeah.
unit. Yeah, Saber Tank has outmaneuver, so
Yeah.
it's not going to work for that.
Okay,
Anakin has outmaneuver.
yeah, outside of a few of
Yeah.
those.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah.
The other thing snipers can do for you too is like with standby or with token sharing. Standby sharing is it's back, baby. But
Yep.
snipers can be very important to like at least threaten those standby taken units.
Yeah.
And when you're positioning your units, try to open up as many lanes as possible, like your snipers, if you have 2 or
Yep.
3.
Angles.
Do a bunch of different angles so that no matter like, especially if it's like pretty obvious where Padme or Anakin or Yoda wants to be sitting,
Yeah.
you want to try to sort of approach that from different angles so that they can not quite be safe from both angles, so that you can always flank that standby off.
You know what the other thing is good? So I played a Yoda Padme Saber Tank. Just don't go within range 2. It's
Easier said than done sometimes. But
yeah, I know. But I'm just saying, just have Luke skirt around it and then kill everything.
Yeah,
That's what you do.
That's a turn 0 thing, right? Don't let Republic have objectives that they can just sort of sit on a spot and you have to approach them.
Yep.
Well, and the other thing too is like watch the standbys, right? And think about, so this is what I had to think about. So I was playing Intercept, and at one point in the game, between my snipers and some Luke shenanigans, I realized I was like, oh, I have more activations than him. And so I just like bum rushed the middle and was like, you can't kill everything. You only have one standby. So like at some point you just have to watch that, and you kind of get, because it happened to me, right? You have that initial fear. You're like, oh no, here's the list I've been hearing about. And then you got to just like sit and think and go, okay, well, he only has one standby right now. Like if I just bum rush everything in, he can only kill one of these things. And then I'm going to have this, and just like being aware of that, planking on, finding the lanes, like Tim just said, with snipers or something else that can hit Padme, and just not, I mean, you don't have to hurt her, just knock the standby off and then move on with your life.
And on top of that too, like also assessing what your units, like if you're trying to run into a saber tank standby, I mean, you can try to skirt around its firing arcs. You can sort of do it with a unit that has the best chance of either surviving or like, okay, I'm way up on activations, I'm just gonna throw a unit away, right? This unit's taken a bunch of damage, it has 1 or 2 models left. Try to put it in range, and especially if you can threaten the standby, wherever that might be, with that unit. So if it's like, oh, it's a E5S B1 droid, it's got 2 models left, I'm gonna put it in range of the saber tank, and it now has range 4 on Padme, so it's now forced to shoot those 2 models. And I'm not saying that's always the best option to do, but sort of assessing what you can sacrifice to get rid of standby tokens, because sometimes sacrificing 2 B1s or a Wookiee model or 2 is worth it to get rid of a standby.
Yeah, it's just important to keep in mind that because it's easy to make this like mental error, but he does not have to shoot the unit that triggers the standby with the standby token. So this is especially true of like the saber tank, which has range 4, right? Like you can have a unit move into range 2, maybe even move into his side arc, and you're like, I'm good, he can't shoot this unit, I'm in his side arc, but you have some other target at range 4 in the front arc of the saber tank, and he's like, all right, I'm going to spend the standby, I'm going to shoot this other thing that you care about that's range 4 away from my saber tank. And you're like, oh yeah, you don't have to attack the thing that triggers the standby with the standby.
And also with like the Yoda list, like this is something we've talked about this before. I know for sure we have in the past on this podcast, but this is a reminder because there's a couple people this weekend that didn't know about this. Force pushing something triggers standbys. So that's another way that like you think you're safe because maybe you're in melee with Yoda or one of their other units, and then Yoda just force pushes you in front of the tank, and then the tank gets to shoot you again or do whatever. So just remember that too, that there's a lot of other options to get that standby off.
And also with saber tanks in particular, they're big models that can only see from one spot. So especially if there's a decent amount of LOS blocking terrain, you can often like hide your unit behind a building in like perspective from the tank, but like you're seeing the like front of its fins or like the side of a gun or something, and you can shoot it. And it cannot spend that standby because it cannot see you.
Yep.
So, and especially if you can do that like while you're in the side arc to get impact 1,
Yep.
suddenly you're actually going to maybe start doing damage to the tank.
Yep.
Like Wookiees in the side arc are one of the biggest fears of saber tanks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fierce and then impact 2 with the bowcaster.
And I
Yeah.
think too, I think you got to look at, I think each game's unique, right? But I think there's a majority of those games where you kind of gonna ignore the saber tank. Really?
I mean, it's a good saber tank player forces you to deal with it.
Yeah.
And a good anti saber tank play is to make sure that the saber tank doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So let's talk about fire support real quick.
Okay.
Because that is a thing that can just kind of one-shot units more than
Yep.
probably any other effect in the game. I've been running a lot of Republic recently. It is very satisfying to do like an Anakin saber throw and then fire support it with a Z6. Just be like, oh yeah, just roll 10 saves. Oh, this has Pierce 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? Just pick the unit up. Yeah, I don't even know why you're rolling. Yoda can pull something similar with his 2-pip. And do it with surprising range for 2 reasons. So this is we're talking about a countering
Mhm.
GAR section, right? So we should talk about how to actually counter this. The primary way to counter fire support is to just be aware of all the ranges and to stay out of those if you can. Yoda can, pop burst of speed, use his 2-pip to move, and then relentless to initiate an attack and fire support. So and he's got surge crit and his attack has blast. So potentially you're talking about like a Z6 fire supporting with, an extra 4 black dice and surge crit with blast. But you also have to be aware that you can use guidance to set up standbys. So you've got a unit with a face up order token, a core unit. The Yoda player can guidance that unit into range 3 of his target and then use burst of speed and jump. And then hit that target with a range 2 ranged attack and fire off the standby from like a place you didn't expect.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind when you're accounting for your standbys against the Yoda player. Usually the standby range is like range 3 from a core unit. As long as I can avoid starting my turn, at least range 3 away from his core units that he can give face ups to, I think I'll be okay. But that's not true with guidance. So factor that into your threat assessment also.
I mean, one of the dirtiest theoretical plays anyways, Yoda 2-pip, throw it on a clone unit of whatever variety is you're liking. Guidance move it so you can shoot with it. And then Yoda then moves and waves, and then you fire support with the unit that just shot.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it might not be the optimal play, but it's something you can do.
It's definitely something you can do.
Clones can bring a massive amount of firepower into single areas really quickly. It's sort of the long and short of it.
Yep.
I would say this is going to begin to become a problem, is if you're not playing droids, you're going to want to start looking at suppression mitigation too, because especially with Yoda on the board, he could do a bunch of stuff with suppression. And so next thing you know, you got a suppressed unit. So you want to make sure that you're thinking about that again and how to mitigate that, whether it's endurance or strict orders or whatever have you.
I mean, there's a few units across multiple factions that are finally sort of seeing play again that can drop a fair bit of suppression all at once, which is sort of the key. So I think everyone has to at least have an idea of what they want to do with suppression. Between Yoda and Vader's Master of Evil, there's just plenty of ways now that you can just have 3 or 4 suppression just dropped on your head immediately.
All right, let's talk about one other weakness of GAR that you can exploit, and has to do with sharing. But generally speaking, most GAR lists, Republic lists, want to be sort of in a ball, with all their units close to each other. And this is also definitely true of Yoda lists. The only thing potentially that can kind of get around that a little bit is lists that feature barks, which naked barks are super cheap and super useful. So you're probably going to be seeing that more. But generally, if you can force a Republic player to split up to care about two separate parts of the table, that's going to help you quite a bit.
Mm.
Yeah.
So you're talking about, this is not going to work as well against the Wookiee list because starting close to a Wookiee list is not great. But long edge deployments like battle lines, if you can get an objective like intercept, where potentially they have to care about, split and care about two separate areas, or if you have secret mission or something like that with R2, and they don't have any barks, then clearly you can try and make them care about some other part of the table that they may not be able to split up to care about. So
Yeah, I think that's good from like listen, I just played a very strong Jedi. Jedi like it when things ball up together. That's our favorite kind of things. And any Jedi, but
so does
Vader
Sabine with explosions.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and oh my god. Dude, Sabine explosions and then sees the initiative on Luke. So good. It's so good. Just like, oh, I'm gonna blow this all up, and now there's a Jedi in your mix. Oh my god. But yeah, I mean, any Jedi, right? Vader likes that. Vader loves it when things ball up together. That's his favorite thing too. And then I would say, as long as we're talking about that, and Kyle, I don't know, in my experience, which has been small so far against Yoda, Yoda doesn't really like other Force users. Where, I mean, it depends on what he's got for dodges and what's going on, but I think there's some opportunity there where he only has 5 health. So, if you can catch him with like a Son of Skywalker, or you can catch him with some, an Implacable or something like that, there's an opportunity there
Or Dooku.
Or Dooku, yeah.
Yeah, or Duel of the Fates with Maul. He can't spend any of those dodges.
Yeah.
It's not even so much about the attacks directly from Force users. It's that Yoda lists tend to be low activations. John's list was 8. And under normal circumstances, being a low activation Force user list is generally bad because you get situations at the end of the turn where a unit can withdraw from you and then you're no longer safe for the space of a couple activations. Since Yoda gets dodges so many different ways, he normally has like 4 dodges, and it's not as big of a deal for him to eat like a shot or 2 at the end of the turn. But if you have a copy of Force Push in your list, you can disrupt that timing and make it happen much earlier in the turn, such that the activation differential matters.
Yeah.
So if you can run like a 10 activation list,
Yeah,
with a copy of Force Push in it, which most non-Republic lists can, you're going to make Yoda have to care about where he is and who he's engaged with a lot more and a lot more often early in the turn, which is going to limit Yoda's options for diving, basically.
Yeah. In another direction too, this is sort of a tip for GAR Republic Wookiee players, but also a warning against, is because of sort of the whole theme of this is token sharing. Like Wookiees have duelist, and it's rarely defensively used on like Rebel Wookiees and rarely used even on GAR Wookiees. But if you have a like Force user in your lines and they take a swing at Wookiees and you have a dodge on Padme or Anakin or Yoda, you can spend that dodge. Suddenly you're taking 1 less damage, but also you get immune pierce. So now Vader, whatever, comes in your line, takes a swing at some Wookiees. 6 pierce 3, spend a dodge. Now it's 5 no pierce. Roll some saves, and you can maybe spend some surges as well. And now you're not really taking that much damage. So it's sort of a tip for GAR, in that that's a thing that I don't see done a ton. But also when you are sort of doing your threat analysis against Wookiees, if you have melee pierce, be careful where and when you're spending that melee pierce. Because if you do it into Wookiees, you might end up just doing not enough.
Yeah, if I have Wookiees in melee against a Force user and I'm trying to tar pit him, I take dodges instead of aims with them.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of usually like on the higher end of a threshold of a Force user's attack pool anyway, to be able to potentially kill 2 Wookiees in one swing. A dodge pretty much negates that completely. And then you have the possible slot machine of rolling saves on top of that once you spend the dodge. And then they're killing like 1 Wookiee per swing. And that's really bad use of a Force user.
Yeah.
You guys got any other countering GAR thoughts?
Yeah, going back to the like, you're gonna out activate them. You have a solid chance of that, right? And so, like, I think saving your most impactful, I think that's Legion 101, anyways. But saving your most impactful, and it could be different depending on the list you're playing. Maybe your snipers are your most impactful because they have the high velocity, but making sure you're saving your most impactful activations to last so that you're dictating the battlefield and they have to work around that. Because even not just what their capability of doing, but your opponent knowing that they're going to go last and having to work around that can push them into mistakes as well, or push them into scenarios they don't want to be in, but they have to be in because they know you have a sniper with high velocity coming, right? Like where maybe they were going to be more aggressive and push up, they're now going to hide and stay behind this line of sight, which is good because now you could be more aggressive with a couple other units. So I think there's just being smart about your last number of activations over them during a turn.
I mean, 3 high velocity snipers will give Yoda or Anakin pause about whether they want to charge.
Yep.
For sure. Well, and things like speeders too. Basically, any list that can backload a lot of threat to the end of the turn. Staps, for example, you're talking about a 10, 11, 12 activation list. You're probably going to be able to go with all 3 staps or 2 of the 3 staps after your opponent is done if you're playing against a Republic player. Same with T-47s.
Yep.
And they can flank, so they can often get around or strip those standbys or access units that don't have access to dodge tokens. So, and that's if you have speeders too. That's going to force your opponent to kind of ball up even more, which you can use to your advantage on the mobile objectives. So. One more thing I want to talk about is just the threat range of GAR lists tends to be a little bit shorter. They tend to operate at like that kind of range 2 to 3 band most efficiently. They don't have a lot of like really good range 4 shooting. So if you can, do like an Empire or droid list that has a lot of range 4 threat, then you can kind of stay out of that fire support / force user / Wookiee danger zone for as long as possible, hopefully, and just kind of chip away.
Yeah, and it seems like, I think this goes back to kind of what we were talking about last year about that patience thing that I'm working on for myself. And that chipping doesn't seem like it's a lot at first, but once you do it after a couple rounds and then you realize, oh, hey, I knocked that clone unit or those Wookiees down to, maybe you got 1 Wookiee or at least got 2 wounds on. Well, now it's becoming a little less scary the closer they get, because now you're just wearing them out so that it's less impactful by the time they actually get to where they want to be. And it doesn't, I guess what I'm saying is you don't really notice it, but by the time like round 3 or round 4 comes, then you realize, how much you've chipped them down and that it's now you can make some more moves.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a range 4 gun line, if you can spend a turn or even 2 at range 4 of GAR, like GAR is very much quality over quantity. So if you can take out even like a model from a couple squads, it really decreases their efficiency really quickly. So just being able to like run forward, take a range 4 shot, and then if you can like fade back for a second turn, if you can have 2 rounds of shooting at range 4 at against GAR lists, you're already way up in terms of attrition usually.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, any other thoughts?
Just be cool as a cucumber.
Always.
That's one of my lessons that I take from Kyle. Got to be cool as a cucumber.
And don't be as cool as the air outside my house right now.
Yeah, not that cool.
It's as a follow up to last week, we were talking about that, right? Like being patient, but not being too patient. And I was just being really mindful of that all weekend. And it's really, it's hard, right? Like you really gotta like watch the table, because there's definitely times when I was way too patient and I was like, I should have acted last turn. That would have been more of a smart move. But these are the things we learn, and you don't really I guess you don't really learn them until you're out there doing them, and so So, anyways, I'm trying to be more like Kyle. Is what I'm trying to say. Remember those old be like Mike commercials for Michael Jordan? Yeah. It's gonna be like Kyle.
I don't have perfect timing either.
No, I don't remember those.
Oh, right. No,
yeah, you're young.
No,
Right.
you wouldn't.
That's not funny, Tim. That's hurtful.
Yeah. I actually, side story, I saw a picture of Michael Jordan and Rodman talking at the All-Star game, and I was like, like I got, oh my God, do you remember?
Oh yeah, I grew up in Chicago. I remember.
Well, that was the thing.
Three-peats.
I'm in New York, but it was just cool to love the Bulls back then, right? Like that was you get your Bulls starter jacket. You got, that's just who you liked was they were the cool team to like.
Yep. Yeah, and I had the fortune of living in the city when they were the cool team to like. So
yeah,
I have so much Bulls stuff from my adolescent years that it doesn't fit me anymore. But I'm like, I can't get rid of this.
No. Those are the golden years, my friend.
Yep.
Oh, Tim, you'll never know about the golden years.
Well, I mean, go sports ball. We got our ice sports.
Yeah.
There you go. Gold sports.
We have a basketball team.
Yeah.
And we have one.
Yep.
There you go.
How about that curling tie, huh? Did you see that curling where they were both really close to the whatever, the dot or the middle or whatever it's called?
So total tangent. One of the funniest things that happened at LVO was the final night. It was me and like 10 other guys sitting around for supper. Behind me, they're playing 2018 Olympic curling reruns. And all these Americans are super into it. And I turn around and go, what is on TV? And it's curling. So I give a like 15-minute curling seminar on what is going on. Because they're like, this is so interesting to watch, but we have no idea what's going on. So I told them.
Yeah. Good for you. See, you have your sports, I guess we'll call them. You have them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yours just involve brooms and ice. It's all good.
I'll take my weather. Thank you. It was 67 degrees here today.
Dude.
All right, the
Nice.
extreme cold warning on my phone has not come off in 3 weeks.
What is it, like -20 or something?
Well, it's currently it was -25 degrees Celsius today, which is cold enough that it doesn't really matter whether it's Fahrenheit or Celsius anymore because they converge around -30.
It's now the same. Yeah.
It's currently -25 Celsius. It's supposed to go down to -30 tonight.
Whoa.
No thanks. Hard pass. All right. Well, gentlemen, I think we should sign off before we ramble about the weather for too long.
This is what people love the most about the podcast.
That's true. Yeah. I did yard work in a t-shirt today. It's great.
Oh, look at you.
I'm driving through tunnels of snow.
It was 50 here. I sat outside. It was nice.
Yeah. Well, we are the Notorious Scoundrels, Kyle.
I am Jay.